All right, guys, here we go. Tonight, I'm going to be going to answer questions about marijuana addiction or THC addiction or things that you guys are dealing with. Feel free to drop questions in the side portion here. And I'm not sure, but I can see some of you guys on video a little bit. Like I see Tom down there. There might be a way for me to add you to the stream. If you want to, I can do that. Just type it into the sidebar and we can have a conversation. Otherwise, I'll take questions as they come in. So that's how I'm going to run this tonight. Like Tom, for example, if you want to hop on, or Z, if you want to hop on, feel free to, and I will pull you up on the screen here. If no one has questions, the first thing I'm going to talk about is dealing with boredom after you quit THC, because that seems to be one of the biggest reoccurring issues that people have. That's what I'm going to start with. Let's move some of this. Remind me tomorrow. Okay. So when people first quit weed, one of the biggest issues that they seem to struggle with is boredom. And I remember this very well when I quit, because it sucked at first. If you're used to going home after work and smoking weed and chilling out, and that was your routine, when you quit, now what do you do when you go home after work? And I think boredom is actually essential to this kind of healing and sobriety process when you first quit weed, because it's during those periods of boredom where your brain is going to kind of reorganize and figure out what activities or what interests it actually is that you have. So for me, that started with just reading. And then before I knew it, I was reading about YouTube. And then before I knew it, I was watching videos about how to start a YouTube channel. What do I film with? What type of microphones do I use? So if it wasn't for those long periods of boredom to give my brain the time to assess and think about different things, I never would have landed on having this channel here and being here tonight with all you guys. So I think early on, boredom is actually an essential part of the healing process. Your brain has been so wrapped around this addiction, so wrapped around the drug. A little bit of boredom is an okay thing. And trust me, in my scenario, it didn't last for too long. All right, let's see here. We got some people. All right, so let's start hitting some of these questions. First time I'm able to make your videos. Glad to have you guys here. Hello, everyone. All right, so I'm going to run through these. What about the insomnia in school? So a lot of people will run into insomnia when they first quit smoking weed, and this is completely normal. I typically recommend quitting on a Wednesday or a Thursday, because then most of your peak withdrawal symptoms are going to hit you come Saturday and Sunday. So that initial bout of those first few days of insomnia usually then occurs over the weekend, so you have time to rest. So that's my advice to people who are struggling with insomnia and dealing with work or school. Now, the insomnia may last a longer period of time than a few days, and that's where you have to start to focus on healthy sleep hygiene. So what are you doing before you go to bed? Are you watching adult media content? Are you doing activities or things that are overstimulating? Are you drinking caffeine? You have to look at this from a holistic approach when it comes to insomnia. Some people will take stuff like melatonin and things like that. I don't personally find that to be particularly beneficial. Your body's going through a healing process, and I think it's best to just let your body heal. So do I think the government wants us to be addicted? I don't really know the answer to that. I don't have an opinion on it. I'll tell you my well, I guess I do have an opinion. What are the chances? So I noticed when I was addicted to things in my business life, I was very, very easy to take advantage of. I was kind of getting steamrolled in my business. I was getting steamrolled in some aspects of my personal life. And I was a very docile individual. And the moment I quit, all of that came to a screeching halt. So for me, I don't know if the government has some agenda or not. I think their agenda is to make money at the end of the day. It's all about the dollar signs. I don't know that they care if we're addicted or not. Yeah. I'm addicted to Delta 8 carts. Yeah, you guys are well aware of my opinion on Delta 8 and all the other things with THC, all the different, Delta 8, Delta 10, THC acetate. One of the things I'm really happy about these days is not having to be concerned with what the next strand is, what the next thing coming out is. I used to spend so much time focusing on what type of weed does my plug have? What's the newest, hottest thing? What's the newest cart? All that stuff. And I can say now, looking back, it's really, really freeing to drive past my local vape shop and have them see a sign up that says, try this Delta 8 or whatever, and just drive by and not even think about it. Freeing up that amount of brain power and like brain space has been a huge blessing to me throughout my sobriety. But yeah, we have lots of people, guys, who call us addicted to the Delta 8. And I also think with some of these things, we're playing with fire. Cannabis as a medicine really seems to have an entourage effect. So you smoke the entire cannabis plant, you get a little bit of each of the cannabinoids found in it. When we're isolating these things, I don't know. I think we're asking for trouble, but that is just my opinion. CBD is different because CBD does not directly bind to your endocannabinoid receptors. I have a question. I find myself having loud outbursts like I was pushed off a cliff as I begin to fall asleep. Is this normal? I literally scream out 2 to 3 times a night. My guess is that you're very early on or within the first few weeks of the quitting process. And this is not completely abnormal. If this continues for a long period of time, it may be worth going to see a sleep specialist. Remember, cannabis impacts our endocannabinoid system, which plays a huge role in our sleep regulation and our circadian rhythm. I was having wild nightmares when I first quit with extremely vivid dreams. I don't know that I was like waking up during an outburst. I was single at the time. There was no one else in the bedroom with me. So I don't know that that was happening for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if I had some pretty kind of chaotic sleep patterns during that time. I've been addicted to hash for 5 years. I'm doing my best to quit, but never managed to do so. Well, you're in the right place. That's what we're talking about. Trey, sweating and headaches are completely normal. You may need to speak to your doctor, but if you're able to take like a Tylenol or an Aleve for the first 2 or 3 days to help with that headache, go for it if you're medically cleared to do so. Sweating is nothing more than your body detoxing. I remember reading a comment on my YouTube channel of someone saying that they smelled like, weed butter for up to like 2 weeks after quitting. I remember that too, working out in the gym and sweating a lot. And when I I was swimming and going to the sauna when I first quit. And I swear to God, I would stink up that entire sauna like weed. It was really, really nasty. Withdrawal symptoms, how long do they last? Most people are going to be over the major physical withdrawal within 2 weeks. Most people will be done with it 2 weeks. People who are suffering from cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, they may have a longer road. And I want to say something very quickly about the withdrawal symptoms. I was working with a young girl and she was in her early 20s and she had cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome and she was really sick. She was really sick while she was smoking. She had really, really bad withdrawal symptoms. And we were 19 days into her sobriety. She had not smoked and she was still getting admitted to the hospital for vomiting and diarrhea and just horrible withdrawals. And 19 days after quitting, and I worked with her about 4 or 5 times, and she reached out to me not too long ago to tell me she's 149 days out of quitting and she feels better than she's ever felt before. Now, I'm saying that because her scenario, it took so much longer than I expected for her to feel better. But thank God she hung in there because it was, it might be if you're 19 days in and you feel like crap, it might be day 20 or 22 where you start to feel really good. And I think when we first quit marijuana, so many of us, I did this over and over again, shortchange ourselves when it comes to that process of quitting. Maybe feeling good was just a day or a week away, and there was a relapse in there because you said, oh, I can't take this anymore. It's not worth it. So think about that. But what if you also work on the weekend and all week? I picked up 2 jobs, so honestly, I don't get much of a break. There's never a good time to quit smoking. There just never is. And if there truly was an ideal time, your brain is that addicted portion of your brain is going to fabricate various excuses as to why what might seem like the perfect time actually isn't the good time to quit. So that would be my argument, Caleb. There's never going to be an ideal moment. Maybe you got to use some time off of work. Maybe you just power through it. I mean, I missed work in the beginning because I was really sick, but I was missing work when I was like going through addiction anyways from time to time. But yeah, just remember that there's never going to be a great time. And some people will say, well, Dr. Frank, what about when I'm on a vacation or something like that? That's great. And that is usually a good time to quit. Now, you might get hit with withdrawal symptoms while you're on vacation if you quit the day before, and that might ruin your vacation. So I usually recommend quitting like 4 or 5 days in advance. But if you choose to quit on vacation, the challenge that arises is people, oh, what the hell just happened? Is if you choose to quit on vacation, what often happens is people come back to reality to learn that all the stressors are still there. Their real life still exists outside of that vacation, and they never developed any tools or anything while on vacation to deal with that, and then they relapse immediately on the day they get back. So that's just my thing there. I'm addicted to Delta 8 carts. They don't feel like real weed. What helped you quit carts? My advice to most people watching this, and I can't tell you guys how to quit. I can't. How you quit will ultimately be up to you. For me, cold turkey was the best method, and it's no different for Delta 8. If you're weaning off slowly, it's like you're holding weed on this pedestal and you're building up to this final day when you're going to quit smoking weed. And that's the exact opposite of what I want you guys to be doing. The people who are most successful in their quitting process and in their like being done with weed for good, they're, they're not people, believe it or not, and this goes across the board for addiction. They're not people who went to rehab. They're not people who worked with someone. They are people who woke up one day and said, I am done. Now, rehab's great. Coaching is great. I have a whole business built around it. I believe firmly in it. But if I'm going to be real with you guys, the people who have the most success are the people who wake up and say, I am done with this. I deserve better than what this is giving me. This thing, this drug, this plant, this whatever it is, nicotine, adult media content, weed, no longer fits into my lifestyle and I'm done. And they don't look back. Those are the people who have the most success. I don't have any withdrawal problems after smoking every day for 5 years. I had it really bad the last times I tried to stop smoking. It's really different for everyone. We don't have a full understanding of the endocannabinoid system yet. And a majority of people actually won't have really bad withdrawal symptoms when it comes to quitting weed. A majority of people will quit or kind of forget about it and move on. I'm here for the majority or the minority that do have the bad withdrawal symptoms. I'm seeing worse and worse withdrawal with the carts, higher concentration THC products for sure. Does THC stay in your system longer if you're overweight or consuming tons of it on an average day and quit? Well, yeah, THC does store in your fat cells. And that's often a reason where we tell people, especially if you have CHS, when you first quit, I don't recommend jumping into working out like super hardcore, because then what happens is you're going to release a bunch of THC as your body fat breaks down, especially if you start dieting around that time. And then you might have episodes where you feel high, but you're not actually high. And it's not a good feeling. It's not like a good sensation. So we usually recommend like gentle exercise when you first start quitting. Excuse me. This is crazy stuff. I've seen people quitting cartridges who I know did quit. They quit. They weren't lying to me. There was no BS. They were still testing positive for THC 90 days after quitting. That's insane. Like that's wild to me. All right, so let's see here. I hadn't eaten or slept in 50 hours. Guys, I was up for a solid 72 hours when I first quit. It really, really sucked. It really sucked, but it was just something I had to embrace. The more you try and fight these withdrawal symptoms, the more you try and fight the insomnia and the sweating and the agitation, the harder this process is going to be. This is really one of those situations where you just kind of have to roll with the punches. And for some people that will be easy. There'll be very few punches. For some people, you're going to feel like you're getting beat up. And I guess I'll say this, but it's not to scare anyone. Don't underestimate how uncomfortable it might become when you're quitting. a lot of times, one of the main reasons for relapse with people, it seems to be boredom or withdrawal. And withdrawal is what I'm going to talk about. I think a lot of times people quit and they're not expecting that withdrawal to be as bad as it is. And then they wind up relapsing. So if you're quitting weed and you're new to this process, plan on it being crappy. Say, you know what? The next week is really going to suck. The next 2 weeks, this might be really, really, really a terrible time for me. And that's okay because I'm going to see it through, because I know there's a finite end to the withdrawal symptoms and there is no end to addiction. That's the beautiful light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to withdrawal. There's an end to it. When does the addiction end? Are you going to go another year like this, another 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? Some people never stop. That's much more scary to me than any withdrawal symptoms that I had ever dealt with. I'm on day 9 and I feel good. How long does it take for your endocannabinoid system to completely regulate? We don't fully know that answer, to be honest with you. Most If you like do a simple Google search, they'll say after about 2 to 3 weeks, most of your endocannabinoid system is re-regulated. But I think a lot of things are going to play a role in that, like your sleep patterns. Do you exercise? Do you have weight problems? Do you have autoimmune disease or complicating health issues? I think there's so many things that we don't even realize that impact the endocannabinoid system. It's impossible to give a firm answer. I tell most people, aim for 90 days when you're quitting. 90 days is really a gold standard for most addictions. Okay. What was your experience with Adderall? So that's funny. I don't even know if I've mentioned that before. I'm not going to go into it. It was very brief. I wasn't prescribed it. I was taking Adderall and Ritalin, and one day I had bought some Adderall and I didn't know they were time released. And I want to say they were like 30 milligrams a pill, and I had taken 3 of them in less than 24 hours. And I thought I was going to die. And that's where I'll leave that. I never touched it again. I honestly think it caused like some degree of permanent nerve damage. I have horrible neuropathy. Was it from the energy drinks, the Adderall, the 5-hour energies? I have no idea. Okay. So thank you for the kind words. Okay. Is smoking weed and being physically active effective? I know it messes up your cardio, but does it scar your lungs from overworking them? Phenomenal question. And I find this a really fascinating question. So, cannabis, if you're smoking dry herb, it does have tar in it. So, there are things, anytime you light something on fire, that's going to have trouble in your lungs. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at the research on cannabis, there is not any strong correlation to lung cancer or anything weird like that. Maybe you'll find some articles, but I think most research right now says, even though there's carcinogenic activity because we're burning something, which creates carcinogens anytime you're burning something inhaled, we don't see the links to some of these bad side effects like you do in cigarettes and stuff like that. Now, what I'd say to you, Maria, is there's 2 types of things out there. So I was pretty into exercise and smoking weed. And throughout my weed journey, there was definitely points in my life where I was super healthy, like ate good, worked out all the time. And, I was just really taking care of myself, minus the fact that I was addicted to chewing tobacco, vaping, and weed. And what I would say to you is, I don't think you're overstressing your system, but weed, if you're not feeling so good from it anymore, might no longer fit your lifestyle. So if you're someone who really values your health and your physical activity and stuff and your physical capabilities, and you feel weed is holding you back, what you're running into is that thing called cognitive dissonance, where the person that you are or you're becoming doesn't match the actions that you're taking. I deal with this all the time in the vaping and the fitness industry. Nicotine is extremely popular in the fitness world. And so many of these people are so healthy, but they got this one thing that just doesn't make sense and it can drive a person nuts. So great question. Something else I'll say real quick on cannabis and working out. I'm concerned that we're seeing a lot of people who are in really great shape developing CHS. And I don't know why that is. I started to put together some research, and I'll be making a video on that soon. But I think what happens is when you work out, your digestive system is super taxed. So, or I'm sorry, your muscles are. So all the blood is leaving your digestive system and going to your muscles and stuff like that. So you're slowing down digestion. Cannabis also slows down gastric motility, and there seems to be some link there to CHS. So I do caution, because there's a lot of athletes who use weed and smoke, and that's awesome. That's great if it's helping you. But I'm seeing some weird stuff with the people calling our offices who are like super athletic and in great shape, getting CHS. Okay. A lot of people love what they do for a living, but they are programmed to go through the motion for just a check. People don't know what they love, actually. Yeah, I think that's true in a lot of aspects of life. I thought I loved weed, nicotine, and porn, but it turns out I didn't love any of those things. What it turns out I loved doing was, making YouTube videos and talking to you guys and, all the other good things that I'm working on. So short answers, please. I think that's impossible for me. Okay. I get that too, buddy. Abrupt and unpleasant thoughts. Let's see here. On the way up, I find guided meditations for sleep really helpful. Yeah, guys, take advantage of YouTube. Those of you guys struggling, mental health is one of the biggest things that people talk to me about. And I always encourage people, like, go on YouTube, watch TED Talk, how to deal with anxiety, how to fall asleep in 2 minutes, the Navy SEAL technique. There are amazing resources out there on YouTube that might not be geared towards withdrawal symptoms, but that can help you with withdrawal symptoms. So yeah, I agree. How to go about friends who respond with let the relapse continue when talking about quitting cigarettes and weed. Yeah, what you're talking about there is peer pressure. And this is not up to your friends. This is not your friend's journey. And of course, your friends want to suck you back in. Listen, if you're with a bunch of friends who are smoking weed or cigarettes or whatever, vaping, I don't care, and then you break away from that group and they see you start to have success, you're threatening to them, and they might not even realize it, but you're showing them that there's another side to this story, and they don't like seeing that addictive voice in their brain. It doesn't like seeing that. So remember that when you're quitting. It's the same thing for alcohol. We see it all the time, being a male in his 30s. If I don't want to drink, so, oh, have a drink, come on, come on, come on. We make people uncomfortable when we do those things, and that's okay, because it's not about your friend's comfort. This is about you. This is about how you feel, not about how they feel. And if quitting is the right thing for you, then it's important that you see that through, irrelevant of their opinions about it. But remember, you're threatening them. You're threatening that addictive voice in your brain. How do you get the motivation to try and quit again? I would argue that you can get motivation through many things. Most often for me, it was through self-help books and videos online that usually did it. But here's my thing. I think you need more than motivation. For me to successfully quit, and I think for most people that struggle with active addiction, you need to develop an obsession. And my obsession became YouTube. That's the principal idea behind my company. The hashtag is become obsessed. And I was obsessed with nicotine, weed, pornography, stuff like that. I've now taken those obsessive traits of mine and I've put them into things in my life that benefit me versus things that destroy me. So I would argue it's more than a motivation. And I would just caution you, it takes time. This is not gonna, you're not gonna become obsessed with something or change your whole life overnight. It took me a solid year to even get going into this new obsession that is YouTube, of being sober and just letting my mind figure out what it was to do next. Yeah, of course, coffee's an addiction, but the question is it a problem for the person? For a lot of people, it's not an issue. But yeah, caffeine is a highly addictive drug. I really can't stop. It's so annoying. You can stop. That's the messed up thing here, and that's the worst. I know that feeling of I can't quit no matter what I do. I'm not capable of. And that's the worst side effect of addiction. When you get that seed planted in your head that you're not capable of doing something, it tends to rot into other aspects of your life. Or Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're looking at all these other aspects of your life and you're proving yourself capable of things over and over and over again. In either scenario, it's a very, very, very painful feeling. And the only way to end that feeling is by showing yourself and taking action to to go forward in the steps to quitting weed. I talk to people a lot. You're probably taking actions right now that promote substance use and that promote smoking, calling the plug, going to the dispensary, lighting up the bong, packing the bowl. You're taking actions to facilitate that behavior. So instead of like thinking about quitting or getting in your own head thinking you can't, try and prove it. Try and go do different things. That would be my best advice to you. Okay. 18 days of quitting, smoking for 18 years. Most of the anxiety, most of the issues is gone, but I still have anxiety and paranoia. Very, very normal. And I'm going to throw out a curveball in this live to anyone. If you do not have cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome and you are over 60 days sober from weed and you are still having anxiety, you can try something like a CBD gummy. That might help you out. But anxiety, and that's if the anxiety is due to endocannabinoid dysregulation. Anxiety is very complicated. Is it a physiological imbalance causing it? Is it some other situation in your life that has been created by this addiction that now has to be addressed? Or was the anxiety from a pre existing situation? Because taking CBD for that won't do anything. So it really depends on the scenario when it comes to anxiety. I can normally get through 24 to 48 hours. What's the key to not relapsing? The key is planning ahead, Trey. If you know you can get to the 48-hour mark and the 24-hour mark, you have to prepare to get to 72. So what trips you up at 48 hours? What mistakes are made at 48 hours? What's going on in your head at 48 hours? You've been there before. This is a scenario that's not new to you. This isn't your first rodeo. So practice, role play in your head. How are you going to handle that 48-hour mark? What are you going to do when you approach that 72-hour mark to not make the same mistakes that you've made on past attempts? So I can't answer that for you, but I'm sure if you think about it, you could find the answers. Emptiness. Truth speaker. I took a month break, relapse, stopping again, and I feel empty. Of course, anytime we quit an addiction, that addiction was a large part of our lives. In many cases, we identified with it, and when you quit, there's that feeling of emptiness. Whether it's reaching for your, dab pen in your pocket or your vape in your pocket, or just that feeling of boredom. I get it. I get the emptiness. It's our responsibility though to fill that void with something else. It's not going to magically fill itself. If you've been smoking all day for the last 10 years or every night for the last 5 years like I did, there's going to be emptiness when you go home now after work. There's going to be anxiety about it. What do I do now? What's next? It's your responsibility to fill that with something, to pursue something new. That's the only way to fill that void. That's my best tip for you there. It's our responsibility. Now, you can get into hobbies, you can get into a new job, you can try relationships. There's a bunch of different stuff you could consider getting into. But I don't know what's going to be most interesting to you. Is it bad to rip vapes socially like when drinking? Look, no. Do I think that's a big deal? No. If I think someone vaped 2 to 4 times a month when they drink, do I think that would be a problem in the big picture of their health? Probably not. Do I think people will maintain that? No. I think a majority of users will wind up becoming daily users again. So that's my thing. It latches onto things you're deeply insecure about. Addiction does latch onto things. That's very, very common with the withdrawal symptoms. I tell people, I made a video on that, Timmy. I think you might be referencing that or your own point. When people quit and they're going through withdrawal, it's like some of my worst thoughts and emotions were coming to light. And it's that addiction. It's manipulating you. It's trying to suck you back in. It's fascinating how it works. It's terrifying. Hours away from day 7 here. I also got the flu. Any tips? Sleeping and eating are just not happening. Brit Dog, there's not a lot to be said. No, showers, reading books and sleeping it off, talking to people, getting support, doing something like this. No, it's just literally like, which you literally do have the flu. It's like having the flu. You just have to ride it out. But Brett, think about it. 2 weeks with the flu, no big deal. Going another year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years with this addiction, that might be detrimental. So you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right stuff. Um, it brings up deep stuff around day 10. Yep, yep, yep. Same with Rehab Center. Thank you so much. I quit back in December. That's awesome. It's hard, Doc. Of course, guys, of course. I'll quit on vacation, and boy, it was difficult, but still not that difficult. Yeah, we were talking about that on vacation earlier. The problem with quitting on vacation, guys. I went on a I tried to quit so many times on vacations, and every time it failed. And I think the same thing kind of happens. And I'm all for rehab centers. If you got to go to rehab, go to rehab. But I think sometimes we run into the same thing. People go to these really high end rehab centers, and sometimes that's all you need is to prove to yourself that you don't need to use a drug for 20 days or 28 days, and you're golden after that. Some people then come back to reality and they wind up relapsing because that reality is going to be there when you get back. That's my only thing that's complicated. I'm sick of my excuses. 3 weeks and hell bent this time. Yeah, of course, guys. That's I was so tired of myself by the end of it. I was so exhausted of every day, every weekend. Today's my last time, this and that. Jesus, if I had focused half of that energy on other things in my life, I'd be in a different spot. I'm just trying to find some questions here, guys. Give me a minute. I think I've been using weed to cope with not being able to get women. I never thought of this until a few days ago. I've heard of loneliness from not having friends among stoners, but not this. So I think all of us use weed to cope with something. Whether that's the inability to, socialize with the opposite sex, whether that's dealing with past trauma or family issues or day-to-day stress. So AJ, when it comes to situations like that, we have to develop new skills. I mean, if it's women you want to be talking to, that there's ways to do that. Like there's people out there that can help with that. I mean, you're not a lost cause when it comes to that. Just like for me, I was dealing with a lot of past family stuff and stress. I had to go to therapy and get help for that. Now that wasn't essential to my quitting process, but it definitely helped, especially as time went on and some of those more intense emotions were coming up. So yeah, and AJ, I'd say this, man, if you're smoking and you're not getting women while you're high, and you want to quit smoking and you're not getting women while you're sober, you might as well get sober and not get women. At least you're checking one of the things off of your list. We can work on the rest over time. So I smoke blunts one after another. I'm clean now. Yeah, of course, God created a temple to be free of poisons. Yeah, Dorva, I think a lot of people, I, I think taking care of yourself really is kind of one of the ultimate rewards. A lot of people say to me, what do I do after work when I come home? What's my reward for a hard day's work? What's my reward for whatever it may be? Doing good in school, doing good at work, gaining a promotion, landing a relationship. And the reward is being able to feel good about that. The reward is the promotion at work. The reward is having enough health to get up out of bed, just waking up feeling good day in and day out. That's an incredible reward, being physically capable of doing that. So that's where the reward is. A reward doesn't have to come in the form of an alcoholic drink or a joint or a hit of your Nick stick or whatever it may be. That's not a reward. So there you guys go. All right, I'm down to my last gram. I can't afford an ounce a week. How do I get past the nausea and the anxiety? You roll with it. You do talk therapy, you talk to people, you sleep it off, you take showers, you work on hobbies, you stay busy as much as you have to, but you just roll with it. Guys, one of the coolest things about quitting smoking weed, in all honesty, looking back, was going through the withdrawals. That was a tough time for me. And having gone through it, now I'm able to apply like, damn, I got through that. I did that. So now when I face challenges in my life, I'm like, yo, I got through nicotine, weed, pornography, energy drinks, all the stuff I was addicted to, really dark time in my life. And I'm like, wow, I got a lot of strength from that. So I wouldn't run from those symptoms, my friend. Now, if you're dealing with really bad anxiety and you need therapy, go do that. If we're talking self-harm or other ideologies like that, go get help. Don't do that alone. But if it's just generalized anxiety and nausea, just learn how to deal with it, learn how to manage it, learn the techniques that we talk about on this channel, and you're going to come out on the top. Because then when you're at another point in your life and other people aren't able to handle that anxiety and that pressure, you're going to have the talent to, you're going to have the power to do that. And that's where you're going to start to excel at a rate much faster than others around you. Gotta embrace the sweat. Yeah, I'm sweating right now. I'm in Sherpa pants and a hoodie, just shouting into my camera here. Um, yeah, CHS caused you to have gastroparesis because I damaged my stomach so much. Yeah, guys, we have a lot of people gastroparesis, gastroenteritis, esophagitis, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I talked to someone who had a fungal overgrowth. It is crazy the stomach problems that we're seeing come out of cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And I have a lot more videos on the future on that for you guys as far as healing some of those complicating conditions go. Okay, guys, I'm actively trying to quit smoking weed. I'm just starting now to eat soup. That's great. That's exactly what you want to do. Just starting now to eat soup. It takes time. It takes time, but hey, you got it to 3 weeks, and there you go. Dragon fruit. My adult media content addiction intensified when I started smoking. It was incredible for me. So smoking was the first thing I quit of nicotine, THC, energy drinks, and adult media content. Smoking was the first one of those that I backed away from and quit. And once I got rid of the weed, I was much easier able to transition into quitting the other things because now I wasn't sitting around stoned at night watching adult media content. It wasn't as entertaining, or it didn't feel as good anymore. So my brain was like, okay, we gotta go do something else now. So yeah, I found when I quit smoking, it was much easier to drop other bad addictions or habits or whatever you want to call it. So, okay, this is right here. This man is uncomfortable. I've had the flu. I've had septic blood poisoning, but here and there, quitting smoking from CHS is the most painful. CHS is a living hell. Okay, I have my quit date and I'm preparing to stop cold turkey. Congratulations. Best of luck with it. I'm sure you'll be fine. 6 times. The ER doesn't do much for CHS. I know. I know. And guys, that's where a lot of this becomes. Here's another point, guys. You can go to the ER, you can talk to doctors, you can talk to me until I'm blue on the face and pass out. And I will talk to people one-on-one. I actually don't talk a lot when we're one-on-one. It's more me talking to you, trying to figure out, asking you questions. But if someone wants me to talk to them about quitting until I'm blue in the face and pass out, I'll do that. But at the end of the day, it's on you. I'm not going to quit for you. Your doctor's not going to quit for you. These ER physicians aren't going to help you. And I hate saying this because it's so cliche, but in the case of addiction, it's 100% true. There's people who will support you, but the only person who can help you is you, because I can't make that decision for you to quit. I can't. No one can. And the more I pressure you to actually quit, you know what you're going to do? You're going to smoke more and more and more and more. That's the nature of things. That's how this goes. You have to find your own justifications, your own why, your own powerful reasons for wanting to quit this substance. That's the only thing that will work long term. 99% of the time, that's the only thing that will work long term. So, yeah, if you're not ready to stop, don't try and force it yet. When you're ready, coming home from work and I'm really craving a drink or smoking weed, you have to get up and do something else. This is such a crucial moment. And I'm going to make videos on this weekend. It's coming home after work. You worked hard. You feel you deserve a reward. Your reward was the hard work that you did to earn an income, to use that income to pursue something that you want to pursue. That's your reward for your hard work. Now, what do you do when you come home? Move around, do something, do anything, read a book, watch a video, go for a walk, meditate, pray, cook dinner. I love coming home and cooking food. I never used to do that. I would come home, I'd rip tobacco, I'd take a crap, and then I would order takeout. That was my life. Now I come home, I meal prep food, I edit videos, right? I do coaching calls and stuff like that. But listen, that stuff didn't fall into my lap. I had to create those things, right? So now I'm always trying different diets. Right now, I'm on a carnivore diet. I love extremes, which is not a good thing at all. But I don't know if that's ever going to change. I wish it would. But I'm on a carnivore diet. So that's cool. Now I have all these books that I'm listening to and I'm learning all these new recipes. And even when I'm exhausted and I don't want to cook, I still come home and do it. It's something to do. But the last thing you want to do early on in this process is sit around, get in your head, get in your thoughts, and say, oh, there's nothing for me. There's nothing for me. Start investigating into something. Start a campfire and grill a steak. That's basically what I do. I mean, honestly, it's not far off from where I'm headed with this carnivore stuff. Be outside like a caveman eating a deer walking by or something. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so let's see here. Was 2 weeks off weed, but smoked during the Super Bowl with some friends. Just helps show me, and it just helps show me how right I was to stop. That's excellent. And guys, remember too, when it comes to special events, I think that's a really big thing. Oh, I'm going to quit after this wedding I'm in. I'm going to quit after my bachelor party. I'm going to quit after I graduate college, after I get a new job, after I get a new girlfriend, after I have my first kid, after I turn 40. There's always going to be an event or a situation. So early on, how I approached that was I would look at my calendar. What big events do I have coming up or potential excuses? Because they are for a relapse. And I would just tell myself, Frank, that wedding you're in this weekend, that's not an excuse to relapse. Because guess what? You got 6 more friends who all have weddings coming up. So, nope, not a good enough reason. Oh, after my birthday, Frank, you got 40 more birthdays to come. Assuming I live to like 70s or 80s or something. That's not a reason to relapse. That addictive part of our brain is always going to try and find a reason, whether it's making a semi-bad day into an extraordinary terrible day or latching on to these big events. You got to call out those lies. You got to say, that's that addictive voice speaking to me. And I know it's BS because I've fallen for it before. And I'm sick and tired of falling for that. I'm tired of falling for those lies that addictive voice in my brain tells me. Okay. All right. So you're smoking your lung like a smoked salmon. Yeah. Okay. Weed made me mess up a really good relationship and it just makes me think of negative stuff. Yeah, I messed up a lot of things while I was high. You know what though? It There's no point in looking back. Like don't beat yourself up on that. I messed up a relationship that I thought was going to end in a marriage. It wouldn't have. It was going downhill anyways. And now, I have a fantastic wife and I couldn't be happier. So don't look back. There's so much ahead. There's so much ahead. You know what I'd say when it comes to that good relationship? This is my honest advice. It's good, in my opinion, actually, that person didn't turn out to be the one, because when you do find that person that you really, really care for, I think it's important that you're past this addiction or that you got it under control, because otherwise I really do think you risk messing up a really good thing. So the way I look at it, those past relationships and things, I'm glad they didn't work out, because I wasn't in the right frame of mind for them to work out. And had they worked out, they would have eventually fallen apart. So that's just my best advice on that. All right, let's see here. Yeah, let's see. I was like you. I promise I can do it. Some nice stuff in there. Tough road for me. Relationships. I hope he comes around soon. All right, I'm looking for question, guys. If anyone wants to hop on with me, just feel free to leave it in here, pop up below, and I'll pull you on and we can have a live conversation. 7 years of a day of smoking weed. I've never tried a puff until I was in my 30s. Yeah. I've been having sweaty feet and hands. Very, 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 very normal to have sweaty feet and hands in the beginning. Sweaty extremities, extremely normal. Remember, guys, too, your endocannabinoid system regulates your central nervous system. So that fight or flight response, anything along those lines, which can increase sweating, is going to be impacted by THC withdrawal. You know what blows my mind? when people say cannabis isn't addictive, it literally binds to receptors on your brainstem. Opioids bind to opioid receptors. Nicotine binds to nicotine receptors. Cannabis binds to cannabinoid receptors. Literally releases dopamine, serotonin, the same mechanisms of action as any other drug. How we got to a point where we say it's not addictive is just beyond me. And I believe that for years too. My mom would tell me to quit. I'd be like, Mom, you're nuts. Cannabis is great. You can't get addicted. There's no side effects. I was wrong. Okay. So I've been smoking weed for the past 4 years, hitting vapes chronically. Now I can't seem to feel present in day-to-day situations, and I can't remember what I'm saying. I don't know if you've quit yet or you're early on in the process. If you just started quitting, this could be that brain fog, like the withdrawal symptom. If you're still smoking, you could be starting to develop symptoms of depersonalization or a little bit of like that mild psychosis stuff. But I'm not diagnosing you with anything. That's just a risk factor when you smoke. How about you simps get addicted to some money? That's whatever. Okay. Bless you, Doc. That's nice. That's kind. I do CrossFit, but yeah, I smoke weed and I have CHS. Wow, I'm way behind in comments. So yeah, I talked about that earlier. CHS and people who are super fit. We're seeing it more and more often now, and it seems like it has to do with that decreased gastrointestinal motility. That's what I've found. Motivating one of my good friends to quit. That's awesome. If you're quitting with someone else, just make sure that they're quitting for their own reasons, or if you're encouraging someone to quit, because if we force someone to quit, and I'm going to take this a step further, if we force ourselves to quit, it's not going to work. So like when I told myself, Frank, you can't smoke weed, that was like my mother and my family telling me, Frank, you can't smoke weed. I'm going to go against the grain. Like that's the type of person I am. So, and chances are you guys are the same way. It's human nature. When I started to reframe it as, Frank, you're choosing not to smoke weed tonight when you come home, but you're choosing to read a book about starting a YouTube channel. Frank, you're choosing to not watch porn tonight, but you're choosing to watch a YouTube video about the best microphone to buy for your channel. Then it became a choice. And I think there's a lot more power in choice than there is in a forced decision. And remember, we can force decisions upon ourselves. So just watch out for that. Of course, you want the mentality of, I'm done, I'm quitting, I'm not going to make excuses. Absolutely. But watch out for that, because that can play a little bit of a mind game with you. Carts really screwed stuff up, made me super sick. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's the neatest thing on here, Jay. No one's alone on this. That's the coolest things, guys. You're a great source besides local help. My only reason is starting to make me sick. Yeah, we're gonna do a lot of lives, guys. I'm just looking. Of course, we got some people with religion in here. Awesome. I'm just trying to find questions. I'm sorry. Oh, I found that ZMA supplement works for sleep. Yeah, I am actually a fan of ZMA. It's zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6. ZMA is a decent supplement when it comes to sleep. And unlike melatonin, which is a hormone, melatonin's low risk. But I don't know how melatonin and your endocannabinoid system interact. And I have a feeling there's something there. When it comes to ZMA, though, I feel like that one's a pretty safe bet. Good call on the ZMA. I have to pick myself back up. It's amazing how it works. It creeps right back in. I'm going to talk about relapse in a second. I'm just trying to see. You guys are just being so kind to each other in the comments. All right. So after a relapse, what do we do? Let's just talk about that for a brief moment. I've said this many times, so I'm going to breeze through it, but identify why you relapsed, what went wrong, and then make a plan for how you're going to avoid it coming up in the future. And the best thing you can do when you have a relapse is not get caught up in it. Don't get caught up in the thoughts of it. Addiction wants you to feel guilty. It wants you to feel hopeless. It wants you to feel defeated. That's not you. That's not you as a person. Because if you've come this far in active addiction, like you're not defeated. Like you're still here. You're on my live. Like you've pushed through a pretty intense amount of stuff to get to a point where you're on a live with me, right? You're not hopeless. You're not any of those things. Addiction wants you to feel that way. So the best thing you can do is acknowledge, hey, no, I got this and I'm going to get right back to it. The longer you dwell though in that relapse, the longer you hang out in that place, the darker it gets. Um, Hiccups are okay. And the last thing I'll say too on relapse is, what is a relapse? A relapse, if I didn't smoke weed for the last 4 years now or so, it's going on more than 4 years now, and I smoked weed tomorrow one time, and that's all that happened. I smoked weed and I passed out on my couch. Would I consider that a relapse? No, I wouldn't. And then I don't smoke again for another 4 years. No, I wouldn't call that a relapse. I really wouldn't. I didn't screw up my life again. I didn't screw up my relationships, my finances, and my health. Now, do I intend on smoking? Absolutely not. I have zero interest in it at this point in my life. A relapse would be if I smoke tomorrow night, pass out on my couch, wake up with a hooker, get divorced, realize she drained my bank account or something like that, and then lost my business. That, and then I'm smoking weed every day again. That would be a relapse. And guys, for the record, I was never into strip clubs or anything like that crazy. That was too intense for me. So that stuff never happened. I don't want to sound more extreme than I actually am on here. But you get my point. That was an extreme scenario. That would be a relapse. So just throwing that out there. Although we do help people with that stuff if you need help with that. Okay. My soon-to-be ex-husband is smoking. The other thing is just a hiccup. My soon-to-be ex-husband is smoking weed all night and all day now that he's retired and acting super paranoid and thinks I'm the enemy. Yeah, that's probably a symptom of psychosis, that paranoia. I never experienced much of the paranoia. I was just so disconnected. I didn't know what was going on, and I it was really weird. Like visual disturbances, I had auditory disturbances. It was very, very, very strange. Paranoia, though, absolutely could be a symptom of it. Okay, let's see here. Do you think CHS is becoming more common as the percent of THC is higher? Absolutely. Absolutely. And guys, when it comes to CHS, remember, uh, you really shouldn't ever smoke again. Anything cannabis, even CBD, you shouldn't touch it. And that is definitely a reason why I truly have no interest in it. And I wasn't even to a point where I was constantly throwing up, but the weight loss, the body pain, I never want to risk that again. Um, I love how as time goes by, you find joy in life that you forgot existed. Timothy, you are so correct. Addiction literally robs us of joy. Like I'm not that's scientifically proven, and I've taken many courses on addiction recovery coaching, and when you look at the neuroscience of what creates joy, addiction is literally the exact opposite of it. And that is the goal of addiction, because if you're now miserable and you're walking around saying I'm miserable, my job sucks, my life sucks, my finances suck, that addictive voice now is the perfect opportunity to say, come here, I'll comfort you. Just take another hit, take another pump. I'll make everything feel better. When in all reality, it's such a facade, because that's the thing potentially, or one of the things, one of the big things that's sucking the joy literally out of our lives. Um, I can't begin to explain over the last 4 years how things have changed for me. And it the first year was a slow process, and then it was like a tumbleweed effect. It There is momentum in addiction recovery. When you quit doing a drug and you start to do little things at first to build yourself up and build yourself, in a positive direction, you start to gain momentum, and it's like a snowball. The more momentum, it just keeps picking up and picking up and picking up. In the same sense that there's momentum behind staying addicted, right? When I first started smoking weed, it was only a few, maybe on weekends. Then it was a few nights a week. Then it was every night. Then maybe sometimes I was smoking on a Sunday and a Saturday during the day, when I wasn't working or something. Addiction builds momentum in the same sense that it's going to take momentum and time for that sobriety process. You guys, thank you so much for all the kind comments on here. And you guys have been so kind to each other. I see you, Devora, Jennifer. You guys are great. How do you explain to your peers that you're going through withdrawal when it's taboo and kept a secret, and I should not be in that position in the first place? People will be judging. Obviously, I've developed a mentality where I truly could care less what people think of me. And thank God I did, because when I started this journey out on YouTube and TikTok, on TikTok particularly, I would get DMs that were death threats, literally death threats. One of them actually had to go through the FBI. So I've completely lost all care for what people think of me. That's the first thing. So, one, I'd say just worry about yourself. Don't worry about their image of you, because the only image that matters is how you perceive yourself. And if you don't like the way you perceive yourself with this weed addiction while you're high, while you're doing these things, then nothing else matters, because it's all about how you perceive yourself. So that'd be my first thing. My second thing would be is it's none of their business. You don't need to tell them that you're going through withdrawal. You don't owe them that explanation, in my opinion. Now, that would be it. That would be my thing. You don't owe anyone an explanation. That'd be it. That'd be it. CHS sucks. Yeah. I'm thinking of going to moderate usage after a year plus. Good luck. A lot of people with CHS 5 years later, and they smoke one time, and it's like, boom, they're right back in the hospital. I'm not making that up. I'm not saying that to scare you. That is the reality, and you can read about that reality on any of the Reddit forums and Facebook groups. I see that all the time. I get DMs of that all the time. And actually, you bring up a better point though, Geo Blah, whatever it is there. A lot of people, they're like, okay, I'm 6 months free, I'm a few weeks free or whatever, and I'm thinking I'm gonna go back. I always say, listen, it's always gonna be there for you, and you don't have to make that decision right now whether or not you're going back. Just reassess your life a year from now. You might find that you don't want to go back. That was the case for me. When I quit, I was firm on my quitting. I said, I'm done with this forever. Whether or not I believed myself, I don't know at the time. I truly don't remember if I believed myself. But now, looking back, I don't want to smoke anymore. So you might be at a place now saying, oh, I'm going to smoke again in like a year. Maybe you will. Maybe in a year you'll have no interest because your life has taken a completely different direction. So that's all. And I still felt tired all the time and had extreme sugar and carb cravings. Why I was smoking daily for years. I went a couple of weeks without smoking, and I had sugar and carb cravings, and I was smoking daily for years. It probably had to do with blood sugar regulation. I mentioned this in a recent video. Your endocannabinoid system regulates your blood glucose levels. It plays a huge role. That's why there's some benefit to diabetics who use things like CBD or cannabidiol and stuff like that. I'm going to guess it was blood sugar dysregulation, which usually you can address through nutrition and sometimes supplementation, but that should have been an easy fix. And that also could have described the extreme fatigue that you were feeling. I have a feeling that was all blood sugar dysregulation. Does weed actually cause brain damage, or is that a myth? I believe your brain heals itself. That's both, Brianna. In a younger individual, it does have an impact on the endocannabinoid system, and it does have an impact on brain development. That is proven. That is not a myth. If you go to Amen, AMEN clinics, he's a psychiatrist or a psychologist who is the leading expert on brain scans and the impact of different substances on brain development. You can read all about it there when it comes to decision making and all that stuff. So yes, it causes problems. On the flip side, yes, your brain heals, and it takes about a year. It's a full year of sobriety for your brain to be back to where it was, to heal up. So yes to both of those things. And guys, I'll throw something kind of crazy out there that I find fascinating. A lot of very successful people in life have struggled with addiction, nicotine addiction, porn addiction, cocaine addiction, sex addiction. A lot of very successful people have struggled with that. And this is what's interesting to me. So when I was addicted, I was a pretty erratic person. Like my temper would fly off. I definitely engaged in more risk-taking behaviors. Like I was kind of out there, and I was a lot more out there than a lot of my friends and stuff. Now, here's where this gets kind of weird. That I think actually worked to my benefit in my business career, in some aspects of my life, particularly in business, because I was willing to do things that no one else my age at the time was willing to do. Like I was like, I'm going to open up, my own practice. I'm going to try and work for myself. And people are like, dude, you're screwed. You don't have money. You got that. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. And at this point, I was still addicted to things, but my brain wasn't logically processing. And I actually think that might have been an okay thing. Now, as time went on and I got more and more addicted, it went downhill. But here's where it's fascinating. If you look at Oprah Winfrey, love these people or hate them, it doesn't matter. Ellen DeGeneres, Tyler Perry, Grant Cardone, the My Pillow guy, all these brilliantly successful business people, and they are irrelevant of how much you like them or hate them. They've been very successful in business. I think some of that had to do with their early on addiction, what that did to their brain. I almost feel like it wired them to take on more risk, and that might have added to some of the benefits in their life, especially after they got sober and then were able to bring it all together. That's a really hard concept that I'm trying to explain, so I hope that makes sense. I don't feel like I might have had some brain damage, but I also think the addiction worked to my benefit in some weird way, as long as I got sober. All right. Afterwards, else needs to be blocked. Take your sermons to another place where we are struggling with a real addiction. I'm not sure what's going on there. Okay, let's see here. Can you have a manic episode due to smoking weed? Absolutely. This is commonly seen with episodes of psychosis. Absolutely, you can have mania and manic episodes affiliated with weed. Now, the only thing I would say too is you might want to talk to someone like a psychiatrist or someone else if you're sober. So here's the problem. If you go see a psychiatrist right now, they might say, yeah, you're manic, bipolar, and label you with a bunch of different diagnoses. And maybe you have those, but I would get sober for a while and see if that's still happening. And then if it's still occurring, you might need to go seek some medical professional help to figure out what's going on. Because you also may be smoking weed to deal with pre-existing health condition too. Sometimes we smoke weed to self-medicate. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with using weed as medicine. I think it's probably safer than a lot of medicine out there, but let's not overlook what we might be self-medicating for. I was just withering away. Yeah, Darva, I just love all the things you're sharing in here. Thank you so much. All right, I'm 5 days sober and I'm struggling to eat and I have no appetite. Got any food ideas? Yeah, when it comes to food, I was a big fan of fruit. Blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, bananas, quick, fast digesting carbohydrates. I was a big fan of hard-boiled eggs, no hot sauce, no anything, just hard-boiled eggs. I'd chew on one and drink some water. Great source of protein and healthy fats. That combined with fruits and then like carbohydrates too. I was doing just white rice. I'd put a little bit of like grass-fed butter in it or whatever. If you just got regular butter, it really doesn't matter. Ghee was good too, but just really light, simple meals. Stay away from spices, stay away from seasonings, stay away from condiments, stay away from heavy meals, things that are hard to digest. And of course, you do want to try and get protein, which might be a little bit harder. Most of my protein early on came from the form of whey protein shakes or bone broth, if you can tolerate whey protein. ER doesn't give me any help, but at least they gave me an IV. And that goes to earlier, guys. Don't rely on these physicians. You gotta bring it in on your own. For your gut and throat to get rid of bad bacteria from weed. Brianna, that's such an awesome question, and I love talking about that stuff because I have a little bit of a background in some nutrition stuff. Anyways, what you're asking me has to do with that whole microbiome. And on a really basic level, a good probiotic might go a long way, but really more of that's going to come down to detailed nutritional stuff that I'll be making videos on soon. Okay. Similar people I know have stopped and slowed down, but the 20s, decent amount of people my age are realizing weed's not worth it anymore. AJ, I say to a lot of people, I don't know if I quit smoking weed or if weed quits smoking me. A lot of people in their life, and I think this is why not everyone struggles with it, they just get to a point where they wake up one day and they say, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. It's lost its flair. I've lost my interest in this. I think a lot of people come to that point with weed. And I actually think that's a good thing about weed. It almost tells us, it warns us like, hey, It's time to let go. Alcohol, other drugs like that, it doesn't necessarily do that for people. Weed is interesting. Would you say using something like Outlaw Dip, nicotine free, would be okay? So, Mitch, I've talked about Outlaw Dip before. That was in the rare video that I talk about harm reduction. Okay. Now, Mitch, I'm just going to throw this out there for you personally. I assume you're trying to quit tobacco products. I have used Outlaw Dips nicotine free before, and that stuff tore the crap out of my gums. Now, I had no problem trying it because it was nicotine free, but that tore up my gums worse than I ever remember any chewing tobacco. So, just a warning. And it's that repetitive damage to your gum line that's eventually going to cause cancer. Repetitive damage to our tissues leads to soft tissue changes, and that's usually what leads to the oral cancer, even more so than the relatively small amount of carcinogens found in chewing tobacco. So there you go. I quit for 4 months earlier. So that's my opinion on Outlaw Dip. But yeah, it might be a nice bridge for some people, the nicotine free, if you're doing the harm reduction approach. It's 2 years since then, and I've been smoking every day. I've quit for 4 months earlier after it's been 2 years since then. Why do you think I have such a hard time quitting again? I, I don't know. I don't know. I went through so many relapses and so many failed attempts. And sometimes I'd be, a month into my journey of quitting and it felt like butter, and then I'd mess it all up. And other times I couldn't even get through a day. I don't know what determines that. I'm gonna guess it has to do with what's going on in your head, and it has to do with the headspace that you're approaching quitting with. That's my guess. I have ulcerative colitis. I'm a little over 2 weeks sober. It was so difficult to get over the first week. Awesome. Congratulations on pushing through. Okay. Hate how unknown CHS is. I hope we get more research out there. I do too. Um, Oh yeah, what worked for me is when I pursued a job that doesn't allow smoking and I made dollars. So yeah, I think that's an interesting approach. I'm a big fan of quitting an addiction and pursuing a career or pursuing alternate sources of income. I too enjoy making money, and helping people along the way is definitely a blessing. It's really cool. What I was going to say about this is your approach was interesting, because I think what happened is you quit smoking weed because you were kind of forced to, but you kind of put yourself in a position where you were forced to. So you made the choice to be forced to quit. So that's effective. And then you got addicted to the reward for the work that you were doing, which is the money, because the money probably allows you to go do things in your life that you want to do. So cool. Interesting scenario that you got yourself into, but good outcome at the end of it. Really neat. Um, Okay, let's see here. I'm guessing the weed lifestyle is a lot harder if you keep it going into an old age. Probably, yeah. AJ, it's a lot easier in your 20s. I think a lot of people who struggle with quitting, I know I did. I was holding on to old values, and I was chasing after that first high for so long in my life. Uh, when I hit my 30s, I was in a different point in life, right? I'm now looking to get married. I'm looking to have kids. I'm looking to save money. I'm looking to really excel in my career. And guys, I wasn't doing like bad. Sometimes I make it sound like I was doing really bad. I was ahead of most people, even with all these addiction problems. Many people I talk to are very successful. So I don't want people to think like success and addiction go hand in hand, because they don't. There's many very successful people who are heavily addicted to substances. But yeah, as my values changed, as the things that I cared about in life changed, and I continued to take actions that didn't pursue those things or empower those things, that's where I ran into big trouble. And smoking weed was an action I was taking that no longer matched with any of my new values that I developed approaching my late 20s, early 30s. No, I have not tried lemon balm during withdrawals, but I like hot lemon water. That's what I drink. I like hot lemon water. Weed totally ruined a good relationship. Yeah, it can do that. Um, all right, guys, I'm trying to see if there's anything else here. Um, is smoking all day and night going to cause psychosis? I It could. It could. That's definitely a risk. Um, Let's see. Let's see. Lots of people who are having success in the comments here. I've been addicted to many drugs before and I can't quit weed. It's even more addictive than opioids and cigarettes, even alcohol. So that's fascinating from this person named R. Here's someone who's quit opioids, cigarettes, and alcohol, and they're struggling the most with weed. Why does that happen? Well, it could have to do with their endocannabinoid system and their genetic makeup and how weed interacts with them. It could have to do with the headspace that they're in when it comes to weed. Was weed, I'd be curious, was weed always a crutch for this person? And was there any chance that their sobriety, and I'm making speculations, this is totally speculative, was there any chance that their sobriety from opioids, alcohol, and cigarettes hinged, or at least they thought it hinged on weed? Is weed the last thing that they're holding on to because they think it's the glue that's keeping everything else together? This is often the case when I'm working one-on-one with people who have quit other substances who can't seem to quit weed. And there's just that idea that weed is somehow responsible for their success getting off of everything else. But what I often point out is, yeah, but you were smoking weed when you were doing opioids. You were smoking weed when you were drinking alcohol. So, like, if it was weed's reason, if weed was the reason why you quit all those things, that doesn't make any sense. You would have quit 10 years ago when you were smoking weed and drinking alcohol. So I say the same thing for cigarettes too. It doesn't add up. Uh, I would tell that person, you have all the tools you need to quit. I know you do because you quit all those other things. You just got to reapply it to weed. All right, let's see. Yeah, the outlaw free nicotine dip. I don't know what he puts in it. It's some type of root or something. It really tears up your gums. CHS will always return if you smoke, right? No matter how long. Yeah, very likely. Very, very likely. All right, guys, I'm trying to go through some comments here. I think I'm exhausting myself after talking for an hour and 11 minutes straight. I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom and see what else there is. All right. All right, Timothy, porn and weed steals your soul. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get too much into that aspect of things, but this is what I can say. It drained me. Waking up completely exhausted and drained day in and day out. I was just so sick of it. I wanted nothing more but then to wake up and just have energy. Just to wake up, freaking get in my car, go to work, feel halfway decent enough to work, come home, exercise, cook dinner, and be content. Like, that was all I wanted when I first quit. I just wanted to be able to get out of bed with a little bit of kick in my step. And quitting weed and definitely quitting adult media content played a massive role in my ability to do that. And it amazed me after I quit weed, nicotine, and energy drinks, and I continued with the adult media content for a while after that. It amazed me once I got rid of that, what an impact that was having on my mornings. I'd watch it at night, and in the morning I would just drag. It was so weird. Maybe it was sucking the soul out of me. I don't know. So, um, let's see. How do I get past the depression? Mike, this is a tough one. And Mike, I have talked to you before and I followed you in the comments and I've seen things on here that you've said. When it comes to the depression, Mike, I think there's a lot more going on in your situation than I'd be able to cover in this conversation. I focus on helping people with depression resulting from quitting a substance, which is typically dealing with like a dopamine deficiency because we don't have that drug. So now we got to rebuild dopamine through lifestyle modification and nutrition. And I typically focus on helping people understand that they didn't give anything up, that they didn't experience a loss. Sometimes when people quit a drug, they go through a grieving process almost, and there's no need to do that because there wasn't a loss here. This was a gain. There was no loss. If you're in a bad place with addiction and you're quitting, you're not giving anything up, you're gaining everything back. So if it's depression due to that, that could be something, or it's that anhedonia, which is depression that occurs. And it's just an overall lack of joy as we experience the withdrawal symptoms, because our brain forgot how to experience joy on its own, because it's been so used to the artificial stimulation of joy through cannabis. So it really depends, Mike. But if I recall, in your situation, there was some deeper, more extensive stuff going on. And for that, I don't work with that, but we do have a therapist that we're affiliated with who she's my personal therapist. She's been awesome. She works with my company now as an affiliation with us. And we've worked so well with people together. So for anyone who needs that, reach out, send an email. I'll plug this really fast. I obviously do one-on-one coaching. All my contact information is in the video description to all my videos. Any video, click the video description. If you need help from me or a therapist or whatever, I can get you in touch with the right people. All right. So, but the 420 community raids some of your comment sections and they are toxic. Dragon Fruit, I'm used to it. Like I said, I was getting freaking death threats early on. So I don't mind the toxicity. And honestly, I don't blame them. Think about it, man. If someone's way of life has been weed and suddenly they see some guy popping up talking about the negatives of weed, they're not going to like that. They're going to become highly defensive. In the same way I used to be super defensive. My mom, when I smoked at home when I was younger, she'd be like, "You got to quit. You got to stop." And I was angry at her. I was like, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me that weed's bad for me. You're wrong. And I could show you a million research articles on why you're wrong about weed being bad for me, how it helps with anxiety, helps with sleep, helps with depression, right? So I don't blame these people for coming in my comment sections and being mad at me. I don't hold it against them, but I do think that's going to hurt the 420 community more than anything else, because this is one of the only communities that I see this level of attack. I used to see it with vaping, not so much anymore. Most people are like, "Yeah, congratulations, you quit." Like alcohol, "Yeah, good for you, you quit." Weed's different. People are so highly defensive of it. Okay. Uh, yeah, the hardest part about quitting is psyching yourself up and getting in the right mindset. That's what this channel is all about. Um, okay, let's see here. But wanted to thank you. Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate that. Uh, no, you don't got to drop your friends, Isaiah. So I need to drop my friends that smoke, even though they are my best friends. No, I still have many of my friends. Just in October, I had my bachelor party and there was weed present there. Isaiah, you have to get to a point where you're confident that you don't need weed to have a good time. You have to get to a point where you're confident that cannabis doesn't need to be a part of your lifestyle anymore. So, no, I still have many of my same friends. Now, I might have dropped some of my friends. My friends were the only intention of hanging out together was to get high and watch Netflix. I don't see them very often anymore. But a majority of my friends still will smoke weed. And even when I'm around them, and I just don't care. When you get to a point where you're comfortable, when you get to that point, that's a really good thing. Like, I would never want to quit weed and then deprive myself of friendships that I've built over years. That would be wrong, because now you would be losing something valid. Now, if you quit smoking with your friends and you realize the only thing you guys had in common was smoking weed, well, I don't know. Then maybe you do want to reassess those friendships. So that would be my advice. But my friendships went far beyond just weed. So they could continue smoking weed and I could still continue to receive benefit from those friendships. So because they were much deeper than just weed, in a non, sexual way. Okay. So let's see. I wish I knew this back in 8th grade. Yeah, we've kind of failed on the education when it comes to this stuff. Um, all right. I've done therapy the last month. That's good. It's tough when you don't have a good, great support circle, guys. That's why we're building out this community. Um, all right. I think that covers a lot of it. You guys have been awesome. We covered a lot tonight. We ran for an hour and 18 minutes. I could probably talk. Oh, Tim, you said something interesting too. One last thing. I keep saying I'm going to leave and then people go and then I like get going again. Weed makes people violent and paranoid over time. So this is fascinating. I don't think it does that to everyone. Certainly not. I know plenty of people who smoke weed who are older who aren't violent or paranoid, and they live a perfectly normal life, and weed just happens to be part of it. Now, Tim, a lot of people forget stuff. They'll say stoners are so non-violent. Uh, Statistically, a lot of violent crimes, specifically homicide, typically there's weed involved in the crime. Okay. When they run toxicology reports, weed and nicotine is often present. Okay. In the person committing the crime. That's one thing. One of the most violent people of all time, Pablo Escobar, his only drug of choice was weed. He did not drink much. He didn't do other stuff. The dude loved weed, and he was one of the most violent people out there. There is research that would support that weed does, in fact, result in more violent tendencies. I have only dealt in the 3 years I've been doing this and talking to lots of people throughout coaching with two people who had violence, maybe related to weed, maybe not. They had some pretty other deep psychological issues, and I think it was beyond weed. The one of them, maybe it was due to weed. He would get violent. I was working with him and his family, and he lived with his mother. He was a teenager, and there was two instances where the mom had confiscated the weed, which I didn't encourage her to do. She wanted to handle it that way, and I don't get involved in that. I don't tell people how to parent. I just try and guide them in those situations. And there was twice where she had to call the police because her son got so violent when the weed was confiscated. That was the only time I've run into that, though. I certainly was never a violent person either. But there is research out there that points to that. Pablo Escobar maybe being one of the biggest examples. Okay. So why do I still want to smoke weed after I know your channel is about quitting, but I believe I'm highly addicted and would like some words of advice. Hellboy from heaven, I'm not sure what you're asking me. What do you want advice on? Why do I still want to smoke weed after 4 months of quitting? Uh, I don't know what you've done with the last 4 months. Uh, I don't know if you've pursued new things. I don't know what you've done in the last 4 months. Um, I worked really, really, really hard to pursue new things, new obsessions, new hobbies, new passions. If I took that 4 months and didn't really pursue that stuff, or the last 4 years and didn't pursue stuff, I'd probably still want to smoke right now. But I've built a foundation around me. I used an example of this once in a video. I talked about like building a fortress around my kind of sobriety process. So here I am in the middle of this big castle, and the walls of the castle represent my YouTube channel. I built a business around coaching and I love it. I'm passionate about it. And then there's a bridge. And that bridge might be I'm a chiropractor too. That might be my chiropractic practice and everything that I've built up there. And then there's a moat, and that moat is my relationship and my current friendships. And then there's, guards standing out front, and that could represent other things. My enjoyment of being physically active, my enjoyment of not having anxiety and depression, not nearly what I used to. I've done a bunch of things, and I picked up hobbies, target shooting and stuff like that. I've put a bunch of things in place to protect me and my sobriety inside that castle. I built the foundation for a successful recovery process. So my question would be, what have you done? What foundation have you built over the last 4 months? That would be my commentary there. So I hope that helps. Okay. And I don't know, you might have done a bunch of stuff. I don't know. Yeah, anytime, Jennifer. I seem to keep staying on. I got in a pretty bad car accident, and it hasn't let me do things like I used to. Oh, yep. And I'm still having a really hard time working. I'm having a hard time finding things that I can do. SS, I don't know the extent of your injuries. I don't know if it's back pain or neck pain. being a chiropractor as well as an addiction recovery coach, I do see people in car accidents all the time. And there are some really fascinating things out there when it comes to pain management that you might not be aware of. So, SS, if you email me, DrFrankHERE at gmail.com, say it's me, SS, from the car accident. I'll get to know you a little bit, and I might be able to give you some guidance on rehabilitation and get you in touch with the right people in your area. And I'm not just talking about chiropractic; it goes way beyond that. Okay. Uh, I used for 10 years. I'll never be an addict again, but chances are I may use again. I could still enjoy a packet of crisps without becoming fat again. Yeah, Phil, I don't tell people, I don't come on here and say never smoke again. If someone's goal is to quit for a year and then they want to smoke again after a year, fine. If your goal is to go from smoking 10 times a day to smoking once a day, fine. Whatever you do to give yourself the quality of life that you're after, uh, go for it. That's the best thing I can recommend. Timmy, thank you so much for becoming a member on the channel. I think the membership is like $1, guys. It helps to support the channel. I really, really appreciate that. Super nice to you guys. There was another person in here too who I missed. I was just hyping and ranting, and I missed them in here, but I really appreciate them being here. Anyways, I got CHS 3 times last year. Yeah, I use cannabis to help my depressive illness, but cannabis is not helping my financially, and that causes depression for me. And the health circumstances also cause depression, right? So, Hellboy from Heaven, I'm obviously a holistic guy. So I'm not, real big on, get on medication, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know, man. You might be better off on some type of medication working with your doctor for the depression, because if cannabis helps you, but it's giving you CHS, well, that's going to be a major problem, because now you're going to have major depression over your health condition. And you mentioned all the money and the financial depression that it's causing. So, I would say you might be getting to a point where the benefits of cannabis helping your depression are being outweighed by the negatives. It sounds like it might be causing you more depression than it's helping. And I think it might be time to seek after some alternative stuff, whether it's a holistic approach or um, uh, a medication approach. I mean, geez, I'm on this carnivore diet and I'm wired. I am a ball of energy. And the guy who wrote the carnivore diet, or one of the guys that focused on it, he's a psychiatrist. Uh, Paul, I don't know. The book I read was called The Carnivore Code. And he had a lot in there about depression and diet. And anyways, I don't know. I feel good right now on this stuff. So cool. So who knows, man? There might be a lot of things. Yeah, Timmy, thank you so much for supporting the channel. How do I become a member? Isaiah, I don't know. I think people just sign up. I think there's like a join button and you can become a member. And once I get like, I don't know, 5 or 10 members, I'll do like member chats, or we'll start like a member only Discord or something like that. I would do a Discord for everyone, but there's a problem for that. When I did that for free, I had about 5,000 people sign up, and there were more people trying to sell drugs in my Discord than trying to quit drugs. So I had to stop the Discord. So when we do private, yeah, right, Tom? Yeah, it was, how it ended. This got really crazy. Not only that, there was like someone actually tried to sell firearms in my Discord. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a federal thing. Like this could be bad if my name's on this. So we had to shut it all down. So now typically what I'll do is I'll put like a fee on things, and people ask me why I charge. It usually weeds out the trouble. Unfortunately, it might weed out people who truly need help too. A bulk of our group was made up of good people, but even just $1 fee and someone trying to sell drugs is like, it's not worth joining that group. So whatever, that seems to work. But anyways, okay, yeah, that was insane in the Discord. That was really, really, really screwed up. I couldn't control it enough. I couldn't. It was like the Wild West in there. Every day, my moderators were like, Frank, there's a new fire you got to put out. Someone's trying to sell firearms. I might still have the screenshots of that. If I have that, I'll pull those up one day. Okay. So and stickers, super chats and stickers for your next live. That's a great idea, Mike. Thank you. There's a lot that I'm still learning on here. For a guy who takes YouTube seriously, I'm probably pretty behind. It takes me a few years to get going on things. I said something funny the other day. Yeah, this is important when it comes to quitting, guys. When you're quitting an addiction, you may feel the urge to like go do everything at once. Give it time. I said this in a post the other day. I wanted to work out. I wanted to fix my nutrition. I wanted to explode my career, and I wanted to land the best relationship of my life. Took me a year of sobriety to get into a relationship. Took me 4 years to actually start paying attention to my nutrition again. I didn't start doing that until about 3 weeks ago. Maybe a little bit before, but I kept screwing up, kept relapsing on the sugars and stuff. So guys, it takes time. This is a building process here. Just keep that in mind. I think so many times people quit, and what happens is after they quit, they rush the process and they're like, hey, it's been 4 months and I don't feel any different. Well, if you were addicted to weed for 10 years and you've now only quit for 4 months, that's incredible. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment, but geez, what's 4 months compared to 10 years? It's going to take a lot more time than 4 months to get in a good position. I didn't start feeling comfortable. I've been working in my career, my chiropractic career, for 7 years. I didn't start feeling comfortable in that career until year 6. I'm now just getting very comfortable with this addiction business. We finally have a vision and a direction that we're trying to go. It's taken about 3 years. So don't rush this stuff, guys. Don't rush this stuff. Yeah, Isaiah B, I think you got to be on a desktop to see that button, guys. I think you got to be on a desktop. Does anyone know what's in carts? No one knows. Yeah, guys, I can't find the join button a lot of times too. Oh, Isaiah found it. There you go. Yeah, I really struggled to find that too. I think on your phone it doesn't pop up. I really don't know. The first time I did this, I had it like where I was gonna do this stuff, and I wound up having to refund people. And if for some reason you were one of those people, like there was 3 people that signed up for like a $20 a month thing. If I didn't refund you, reach out to me. I think I got the 3 people in it, but just in case. Thanks. Last time I got CHS, I was sober for 6 weeks, but relapsed 6 weeks later, still bites in it. Yep. I know. It's hard to quit now because the strains are so high quality. Look, you could give me the best quality weed in the world. It's the consequences of the smoking. Like the quality of the weed is irrelevant. Whether I was smoking a dank vape, which I had smoked several, or I was smoking, the Gods, some really good weed my dealer had once. I remember it was called the Gods. It was awesome. But who cares? The consequences were the same. The consequences were addiction, and the side effects of weed were addiction. And that's why I had to quit. It didn't make a difference while I was smoking the best weed in the world, or that would be like saying, having a hardcore alcoholic who's like, oh my God, it's so hard to put down the Johnny Walker Blue Label or Black Label or whatever it is, at $80 a bottle. Like, you'd look at that person and be like, no, dude, you're an alcoholic. Like you're going to die. Your liver's failing. So yeah, don't worry about the quality of it. That's focus on the addiction. That's just that addictive voice in your brain saying, oh, it's something new, something exciting. Stay hooked. Stay with me on this. All right. Let's see. I need a chiropractor crack. That's funny. Mike, I laughed at that. That's funny. All right. Let's see here. Do you recommend as much activities as possible when quitting? I've kind of talked about this earlier. Yeah, you have to be on a desktop for the membership. That's what I thought. I thought so. Yeah, I do recommend staying busy. Everyone's different though. Some people might just lay around for 2 weeks, which I don't totally recommend doing that. For me, I had to stay busy. I consumed so much YouTube and books and just talking. That was kind of around the time I started my TikTok. Honest to God, all my old videos, like TikTok deleted them when you go back that far. But that was right around the time I was still getting comfortable in my sobriety. And TikTok was a blessing for me because I could make like 60 videos a day. So that was just something to do. And that eventually led me to here. So pretty cool. I want that member Discord. Don't worry, Isaiah. We'll get the member Discord going. I'll talk to the guy that sets it up. We'll get a member Discord up later this week. We'll get it going. Maybe that could be what the $1 goes towards. Okay, let's see here. Join button is in the down. Okay, let's see. Um, Tell people you're quitting. The fear of letting them down will encourage you. Get a whiteboard, right? I'm addicted to weed. I am X days sober. Get your equipment out of the house to remove the temptation. I totally agree with throwing everything out. I totally agree with keeping track of your goals and writing stuff down on a whiteboard. I talk about this a lot. I did this to an extent. Again, this is something that took me like a very long time. Like I wrote down my reasons for quitting. I wrote down, my reasons for smoking. And because then I could see how dramatically they contrasted. I'm quitting because it makes me anxious. I smoke because it helps with the anxiety. That don't make no sense. So that made it easier for me to quit when I would be like, oh yeah, all my reasons for smoking make no sense. So I'm not going to relapse. Telling other people to stay accountable, I think is awesome. Sometimes for people, I think what happens is then if they relapse, there's even more guilt and more pressure. And then they're tied up in this lie because they say like, yeah, I still quit. I don't smoke. And now they have the guilt of like lying to the people because addiction will do that. We don't want to lie to our wife or husband or mother or father or friend, but we will. At the end of the day, we will to protect that addiction. Addiction will do whatever it can to protect itself. So that'd be my only word of caution there. Because then what happens is, because I've done this before, I'm talking from experience. Then what happens is you start to feel really guilty, not only guilty about letting yourself down, but guilty about letting down that other person. The addiction then grasps onto that guilt and then it drags you through the mud. So I think staying accountable is awesome. Just make sure you're staying accountable to people where you have no problem being honest with. That would be my next advice. More live Q&As. We got to do more of these, Mike. Yeah, I think we're going to get these things rolling. Mike, Isaiah, we're going to get these things rolling, guys. Live Q&As. We'll do them, of course, for everyone. We're always going to try and provide for everyone, but we'll try and do some member-only stuff too and all that. We'll get going. I used to go to the chiropractor all the time. He was encouraging me on sobriety. Unfortunately, he passed away. You know what drives me nuts that makes me laugh? A lot of people are like, oh, you're a chiropractor. I'm like, yeah, I am. It's awesome. And I obviously deal a lot with pain management. And actually, chiropractic plays a huge role in the opioid epidemic. Some of the most pronounced speakers on that epidemic were chiropractors. Two, you can have more than one degree, hence the addiction recovery coaching certifications that I hold. You can have more than one talent. And three, when you look at the literature on quitting smoking cigarettes, chiropractic is one of the leading professions to helping people achieve sobriety from nicotine more than any other profession. So I think people get really confused by that. And I understand why, but the constant jonesing sucks. It's a relief to stop finally. Yeah, it's beautiful to stop. All right, guys. I gotta go. We covered so much tonight. It's been an hour and 37 minutes. We're going to try and do these every Wednesday. Thank you, those of you guys who joined. Yeah, it does stink, Mike. That's why I appreciate you joining the membership. A lot of people don't realize it, but like this costs a lot of time and money to do this. This is time that I'm not on a call someone, time that I'm not working on my other business. So I really do appreciate the donations, whatever it is. We are running into some roadblocks with YouTube. It's no big deal. I could make $0 and I'd still keep going. Well, I can only do that for so long before I'd have to maybe like refocus. But anyways, I really appreciate it, guys. It's awesome. And I appreciate your support on here. We'll be back next week. And guys, we will work on some of the Discord stuff. Okay. We'll get that up and running. Peace.